Welcome to the 64 Squares studio, where chess history comes to life, one classical battle at a time. Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day and welcome back to 1892 World Chess Championship between Wilhelm Steinitz and Mikhail Chigorin, played in Havana. And it's game number 7. We have seen game number 6 won by Wilhelm Steinitz against Chigorin in a very convincing way. And Steinitz is leading by 1 point. So let's see if Chigorin can equalize the score. So Chigorin is white, Steinitz is black, and we have pawn to e4 by Chigorin and e5 by Steinitz. We have seen them playing this opening the entire World Championship game, and again we have pawn to b4, the Ivan's gambit. Mikhail Chigorin was one of the most aggressive players there was in 1892. So there is no shock that he played Ivan's gambit that frequently. Bishop takes b4 by Steinitz, and Steinitz was a very tough defender. He actually basically accepted the gambit every time it was played against him, and he had a terrible score against Ivan's gambit earlier days, but nowadays he pretty much got the antidote against Ivan's gambit. So let's see c3 by Chigorin, of course, and nowadays people prefer d4 over castle, but Chigorin played castle as the Gunsberg before him played in World Championship game against Steinitz, and he had a quite good games. d6 by Steinitz, and this is what he generally opt for. d4 by Chigorin, and we have a very sideline, basically a new move in the position, bishop to d7, and it was in this position at move number 7 that we have a completely new game in 1892. And okay, this move never get popular later on. Nowadays the theory continues with bishop b6, where you give up the pawn back, so like this, and you get the pawn back, but after knight f6 attacking the pawn, let's say defense and castles, bishop e6 is coming next, and black has a healthier pawn structure, so if anything black is the one who is pushing for a win. So bishop to d7 is certainly not improvement over bishop to b6, but in a world championship game, of course you try to make your opponent work for his meal and try to get them out of home preparation. So queen to b3 by Chigorin, it's apparently a double attack, but not really. The b7 pawn is not worth capturing, so Steinitz just defended the pawn with queen f6. And you definitely don't want to capture this pawn, because after rook b8, if anything, you are in trouble as white, because you're just getting one pawn back. You have sacrificed one, so you got the pawn back, but you are giving black a lot of activity for it. So Chigorin was not the player who compromised his development, so he just took the pawn on e5 first. Pawn takes. If you had taken with the knight, then maybe queen b7. So, and now rook to d1. Bishop a3 was also possible, but okay. Well, you cannot really castle long because bishop g5 for now. So Steinitz played pawn to a6. Not sure if he actually want to castle long, because there is an open b file, and against attacker like Mikhail Chigorin, you probably don't want to play right into his hand, right? Now bishop to a3 by Chigorin, and it was in this position that this position actually was never repeated again at move number 11. Later on in game number 9, so this is game number 7, so 2 games after this game, Chigorin got this exact position in World Championship again, and well, he found a beautiful improvement, a beautiful tactical shot which equalizes the game. Right now black is already better, so try to pause the video and try to find the tactical shot which more or less equalizes the game on the spot while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, so the move in question is a nice bishop takes f7. The only move which gives white, well, equalizes for white, and the idea is after queen takes, king takes, the king has been, well, not defending the bishop, so it is diverted, and after rook d7, the game continued with knight e7 and one more good move by white, which is king f1. Idea is if you now play rook d8, then I can trade the rooks and play king e2, stopping your king rooks from coming in. And the position is more or less equal. And the game ended in a draw, that ninth game which I am talking about. So, well, Chigorin finding the improvement of his own game against Steinitz later on, which is nice to see. You know, these people don't have engines. They don't have a team to work with. They don't have a very strong team. And basically, they are the best players there, right? And they're working on their chess, well, so well in 1892. Anyways, but in this game, he did play bishop to a3, which is a weak move. And well, that's why it was never repeated again. Rook to d8 by Steinitz, stopping bishop f7 now. So maybe he saw bishop into f7 during the game, but it is curious that he actually allowed bishop takes f7 in ninth game then. Anyways, white continued with knight bd2, simply developing, and Steinitz had enough and he played bishop b6. So no more b7 pawn for you, and it was never a good idea to capture it in the first place. And now bishop to d5, a very typical Ivan's move, freeing the c4 square for the knight while pinning the, well, sort of pinning the knight for the pawn, but not really. Knight to a5 attacks the queen first, and okay, you are somewhat worse in this position as white because you cannot really defend against black eventually castling and having a very healthy pawn structure and being pawn up. So you don't have a much compensation in this position, but you have to play queen to b2. As ugly as it looks, you have knight c4 next, and you don't have a sufficient compensation, but this is the best you have. But in the game, Chigorin played queen to b4, and this just does not feels right, because now c5 by Steinitz, and well, what's the point? Now c5, and now after queen b2, this does not really improve your position, right? If anything, it closed down your own bishop. So that was certainly an odd decision by Chigorin. But as you progress in the game, you will find that a lot of strange decisions was taken by both players. Anyways, knight to e7 by Steinitz for now. And we have knight to b3. It is a good move because you definitely want to get rid of this knight so you can capture the b7 pawn, right? So knight takes b3, and okay, you can capture with the pawn, improving your pawn structure, but queen takes b3 actually keeps the pressure on this diagonal and on this diagonal. So queen takes b3 played, and we have castles by black. And okay, now if you compare the position, certainly it looks like, okay, white has a better bishop, but black is just a pawn up in this position, and white has to take the pawn back. So bishop takes b7 and knight g6, and suddenly it looks like black actually has some real counterplay against the white king, and white's pieces are just, well, offsided, especially this bishop because it is staring at the pawn, while this bishop is actually keeping everything together. Anyways, pawn to c4 was played by Chigorin, so queen can help out on the defense on the third ring, and also creating a very nice square for the bishop on d5 square. Knight to f4 by Wilhelm Steinitz, a very natural move. There is nothing more natural than this move. Maybe hinting at knight e2 check followed by knight to d4. So next move is self-explanatory, queen to e3, defending against knight to e2 check, and we have bishop to g4. Pinning the knight. And but you could have played queen g6 also, but okay, after queen e3, bishop to g4, and bishop to d5 by white. And this position is definitely favorable for black because white's king side or queen side play, whatever it is just non-existing. You can never win this pawn as long as you have this knight hanging here. So rook f to e8 by Wilhelm Steinitz. Okay move, I guess. You could have played something else, but I mean there are a lot of moves. Players just have to make few moves. So bishop to b2 by Chigorin certainly makes sense. There is a bishop on this diagonal, which is much more useful than on this diagonal. And he is hoping that he can move the rook, maybe move the knight, maybe move this knight away, then move this knight away, bishop away, and somehow create the counterplay. It would be real if not for Steinitz blundering on next move directly. And Steinitz played rook to d6, a huge blunder, and the one which should have cost him the game. So, well, but Chigorin overlooked it and he played rook to d2. So, pause the video and try to find what Chigorin and Steinitz both missed in this position while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay? Well, it is quite a self explanatory. The rook here is under the fire of this rook. Even though you are defending it by the queen, there is also the knight which is hanging, right? And this bishop just went here at the last move, and the e5 pawn is quite weak. If you combine everything together, you are going to find this move, bishop takes f7. The idea is now after, well, if you play queen takes f7, you just lose the rook. There is no point in playing that. And after bishop takes f7, sorry about that, king takes f7, rook takes d6, queen takes d6, there comes knight takes e5 check, and wherever you move, I'm going to take your knight. So let's say king g8, queen f4, and well, I'm just up 2 pawns and there is no compensation, and there is queen f7 coming in, there is g4 bishop hanging. Everything is just loose in the position and white is just completely winning. And it was very strange that Chigorin, a great tactician, missed this opportunity in a world championship match. So a very great oversight. But he did play a very tricky move. He played rook d2 and he set up a very, well, a cute trap for Steinitz to fall, and Steinitz directly bite into that trap. He should have played something like rook to d8 and the game continued. But not rook to d8, but this rook to d8, and the game continued. But he bite the bullet and he played tactical oversight, knight into g2, a second consecutive blunder by black. And well, again, pause the video and find why knight into g2, a piece sacrifice, is a huge blunder in this position while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, so the idea is quite simple. You just have to calculate it out till 3 moves ahead. So king takes g2. And the Chinese idea was, of course, now the king is out. Now I play bishop f3 check. And after queen f3, there is queen g5 check. Nicely connecting the king and the rook, right? And what is more natural than this? You are just losing a rook. But Chigorin actually has seen one more move. Played king h1. And suddenly, well, you played queen into d2, but now you are completely lost because after queen takes f7, this is what Steinitz missed. And the rook is hanging, the king is in check, and suddenly you are losing your rook back. Now king h8 runs into queen e8 check, so Steinitz played king h7, hoping that maybe white will play, let's say, queen takes e8, and he will try to survive with, let's say, rook into d5, queen into f2. There are some tactical ideas, but Chigorin played a move and Wilhelm Steinitz resigned, and the move is very nice, rook g1, and there is no defense against queen into g7 mate. So yeah, it was in this position at move number 28 that Chigorin scored a very unexpected win over Wilhelm Steinitz and leveled the score of the game. So after 7 rounds, they are both at 3.5 points each. And what a game it was. It was certainly Steinitz who played our opening part really well. And Chigorin was always in trouble until rook to d6, where Steinitz just blundered that rook. And Chigorin didn't find it. And then Chigorin played a very tricky move, rook d2. And Steinitz again blundered it. So yeah, what we can say, just a bad day for a world champion. Of course, a theoretician and a great world champion like Wilhelm Steinitz would have found this entire sequence with less than a minute, but he did blunder this in the world championship game, so it's pretty historical. Well, he is human, what we can say. Anyways, I hope you like this game, you like this video, and if you want to stick around to see what happens next, then give it a sub, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.